The black woman walked into the airport like she owned the place. One security officer decided that was a problem and gave her a special screening. Everything was going his way, until she smiled. A minute later, he regretted everything, and that's putting it lightly. Welcome to the Circus Denver International Airport at 5:42 a.m. was a war zone. A battlefield of overstuffed carry-ons, sleep-deprived travelers, and security lines that moved slower than a DMV on a Monday. The fluorescent lights overhead didn't just hum, they screamed. A blinding, buzzing reminder that corporate America had mastered the art of human suffering by scheduling red-eye flights and forcing everyone through a security gauntlet run by underpaid agents with too much power and not enough patience. And Officer Hank? He was the king of this miserable kingdom. At Lane 6, he stood like a gatekeeper to an ancient dungeon, arms crossed, his face locked in a permanent scowl. He was pushing 45, the kind of guy whose best years were long behind him but whose belly kept moving forward. His hair, holding on for dear life. His posture, pure authority complex. He wasn't in a bad mood. He was the bad mood, and he hated every single person in this line. The business travelers who acted like they owned the place, the college kids who forgot liquids weren't allowed, the families with strollers that took forever, and worst of all, the people who didn't respect his position, like the woman who just stepped up to his checkpoint. Here comes trouble. She walked into the security line like she was auditioning for a Power Move commercial. Mid-30s, tall, black, dressed like she was 2 promotions ahead of everyone else in this airport. Sleek gray pantsuit, designer heels that probably cost more than his entire paycheck, and a carry-on so polished it could double as a mirror. And those braids? Pulled back with the kind of neatness and precision that screamed, "I don't play games." Hank immediately didn't like her. Maybe it was the unbothered expression on her face. Maybe it was the way she didn't fumble for her ID like a nervous wreck. Maybe it was how she stood there, calm, poised, like security checks were just another minor inconvenience, not a potential interrogation waiting to happen. Or maybe it was something deeper, something he wouldn't admit to himself. Either way, his gut told him one thing: make this difficult. The power play. "Ma'am, step forward," Hank barked. She moved without hesitation, placing her boarding pass and ID in the tray with the kind of deliberate confidence that made Hank's eye twitch. No small talk, no forced politeness, just pure, unshakable composure. He barely glanced at her ID before slapping it back down. No words, just a grunt. "Take off your shoes, belt, and jacket," he said flatly. "Anything in your pockets?" "No." "Step into the scanner. Feet apart, hands over your head." She obliged, stepping into the full-body scanner like she'd done it 1,000 times, because she probably had. The machine whirred to life, scanning, analyzing, searching. Then, beep, beep, beep. Hank's smirk snapped into place like a reflex. Jackpot. The game begins. The woman arched an eyebrow, her face betraying not an ounce of concern. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone neutral, but with just enough of an edge to let him know she wasn't in the mood for nonsense. "Looks like you got flagged for additional screening, ma'am," Hank said, letting the moment stretch, enjoying the power shift. She sighed through her nose, like someone who had been through this too many times before. "That's impossible. I travel all the time. I know the rules." Hank shrugged, exaggerated, slow. "Yeah, well, guess today's your lucky day." He motioned toward a female TSA agent nearby, already picturing how this would play out. The extra screening, the uncomfortable pat-down, the slight humiliation that would knock her off her high horse. But something was off. She didn't argue, didn't roll her eyes, didn't panic or plead like most people did when they realized they were about to be pulled aside. She just waited, like she knew exactly how this would go. And that was the moment, just for a split second, when something about this felt wrong. But Hank, of course, was too busy enjoying himself to notice, and that was his first mistake. The random selection area was a glorified broom closet, cramped, windowless, and lit by a single flickering fluorescent bulb that had probably been around since the airport was built. Officer Linda, a short, stocky woman in her late 40s, waved the well-dressed black woman over. "Ma'am, step over here." Hank trailed behind, arms crossed, practically bouncing on his heels like he'd just hit the jackpot of authority trips. This was his moment. Miss High and Mighty wasn't going to breeze through security without a lesson in humility. The pat down. "Hands out, palms up," Linda instructed. The woman obeyed. No eye rolls, no complaints, just eerie calmness. Like she was taking notes in her head, cataloging every move. Linda got to work, gloved hands sliding over her arms, down her back, along her thighs. Just another routine check. And then she reached the waistband. The woman flinched, and Hank pounced. "Whoa! Hold up!" he barked, stepping forward like he was solving a national crisis. That felt like something. "You feel that?" Linda hesitated. I didn't really." "Do it again," Hank cut in, his smirk stretching way too wide. Linda's hands hovered uncertainly before reluctantly repeating the motion. Another flinch. And just like that, Hank was grinning like a game show host. "Oh, you saw that?" He turned to the other TSA agents who had conveniently gathered to spectate. She flinched. "You see that? That means she's hiding something." A few agents nodded in fake agreement, entertained but not exactly convinced. The woman's jaw tightened. Not in fear, more like controlled irritation. "Ma'am," Hank said, dragging out the word just to be obnoxious, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me for a private screening." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "You are seriously wasting your time." "Yeah?" Hank sneered. "Well, I got all the time in the world, sweetheart." At this point, a few passengers were watching, some with concern, others pretending to be deeply invested in their phones. No one stepped in. The woman glanced at her watch. First real sign of impatience. "Let's just get this over with," she muttered, stepping toward the interrogation room. Hank followed, the door clicking shut behind them. If he had known then what he knew now, he never would have closed that door. The TSA interrogation room was barely bigger than a supply closet. No windows, buzzing fluorescent lights, and an old security camera in the corner that probably hadn't worked in years. Hank stood with his arms crossed, leaning against the counter like a cocky game show host about to deliver bad news. "All right," he said, his voice dripping with false patience. "Here's how this is gonna go. You tell me what's in your waistband and we'll get you out of here." He expected panic, defensiveness, a plea. What he got instead? Silence. The woman, still as composed as ever, just stared at him, unblinking, unshaken, unmoved. And then she smiled. Not a nervous smile, not an embarrassed smile. No. This was the kind of smile people give right before dropping a bombshell. Hank's stomach twisted. Why does she look so confident? Something about the way she carried herself suddenly felt off, too calm, too in control. A chill crawled up his spine, but he shoved it aside. He was the one in charge here, right? That's when she reached into her blazer, calmly, slowly, like she had all the time in the world, and pulled out something that made Hank's stomach drop straight through the floor. a badge. Not just any badge. A Federal Bureau of Investigation badge. The kind that only high-ranking agents carry. Hank felt his smirk disintegrate on the spot. The woman, no, Agent Naomi Carter, tilted her head, watching his reaction like a scientist observing a failed experiment. "Special Agent Naomi Carter," she said smoothly, her voice oozing satisfaction. "Internal Affairs, Department of Homeland Security." The room suddenly felt way too small. Hank's brain was scrambling for an exit strategy. His mouth, however, had nothing. Naomi took a slow step forward, just enough for Hank to catch a whiff of the expensive perfume on her wrist. "You just illegally detained and harassed a federal officer," she whispered, her tone sharp enough to slice through steel. "Which means you, Hank, are about 5 minutes away from the worst day of your pathetic little life." Hank's throat went dry as sandpaper. Naomi casually pulled out her phone and placed it on the counter. Then, with one tap, she pressed play. A recording. And then, Hank's own voice filled the room. She flinched. "You see that? That means she's hiding something." Hank's heart plummeted. Naomi's smile widened. "Say cheese, Hank," she said, her voice almost playful. "This is going viral." And that was the moment he realized he was screwed. What would you have done in Hank's place? Do you think he got what he deserved? Have you or someone you know ever faced a situation like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, and let's talk about it. This story isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder of the real issues people face every day. It's here to shed light on injustice and start a conversation that can help make the world a better place. Your voice matters. Your opinion has power. Let's make a difference.